Judge Cannon in Florida. Judge Cannon in Florida made a terrible mistake. She doesn't view it as a mistake, but her decision will have a domino effect in many respects in helping to unravel this nation. I said before, she needs to control her courtroom. The fact that the Biden administration, through Jack Smith and Merrick Garland, indicted President Trump when they did, triggering a number of events, including trying to have a full-scale trial during the Republican primaries and before the general election, doesn't mean the judge should have gone along with this, and she did. Smith wanted the trial to start in December. She moved it to May. May. As our friends at Breitbart points out, that date falls May 20th after most of the Republican presidential primaries, which will largely wrap up on March 12th and before the Republican National Convention is scheduled to take place in July. So it effectively disenfranchises Republican voters because they can't choose, if they wish, a different candidate in the event Trump is convicted. Now, nobody defends Donald Trump more than I, and I think what's been done to him and is being done to him is absolutely horrendous. The problem is, if he's convicted, that they will use every effort they can under the 14th Amendment to stop him. But even beyond that, it's going to be hard to get enough independents and some moderate Democrats over to win the general election. That's the whole goal here. To interfere with this election. To re-elect Joe Biden. That's what's going on. And the judge blew it. The judge blew it. AP reports the trial date is seen as a compromise between a request from prosecutors to set the trial for this December and a request from defense lawyers to schedule it after the election. No, it's not a compromise. It's still going to occur during the election. This is going to tear this country apart like nothing before in American history except the Civil War of the United States. Nothing like this has ever been done. And of course, the Democrats don't care. They're all for the country collapsing. Trump and aide Walt Nauta had pleaded not guilty to numerous charges of illegally keeping national defense records after leaving office and conspiring to hide them, as Breitbart News has reported. Trump, of course, has pled not guilty to 37 counts. There was absolutely no reason to hold this trial during the course of an election. None. This judge has allowed the Department of Justice under Merrick Garland, in support of Joe Biden's re-election effort, to take charge of her courtroom. Now let's play this out. You and I, let's play this out. 37 charges. It only takes one to convict the former president, the candidate for president, should he become the Republican nominee. Only takes one out of 37. That's why he piled on the number of charges. So you'll have potentially a trial jury sit there and say, all right, let's compromise. Let's get them on this count, on this count, but not these other 30 counts. The problem is one count is enough. Then he can appeal. That process, obviously, will take a long time, even at an emergency level, even if he goes to the U.S. Supreme Court. So you'll have the Republican potential nominee for the presidency fighting for his freedom during the course of the presidential election. This will be the whole story, so he cannot effectively run for president of the United States. And not only he, but the Senate Republicans and the House Republicans will all suffer losses. Because regardless of how we feel that this empowers us further to do something about it. Look at your neighbors. Look at people who you meet. It's hard to persuade them to come over and vote when the entire focus is on this. And that's exactly why this timing is what it is. And it's exactly why the January 6 charges are going to drop quite quickly, too. So they can try that case in Washington, D.C. during the course of the election. Judge Cannon made a horrendous error. She's now dragged the federal judiciary into the election process. Now she, with every decision she makes, will be interfering in the election. Every decision she makes, and I would just warn her, it's not going to get easier. It's going to get harder. Because every motion that is filed by the Trump people, the media will be sitting there poised to attack her if it's not for the government. And in addition to this disastrous ruling on this reasoning, I would say to the judge, how the hell could you do this? Well, there's an investigation pending in secret by the chief judge in Washington, D.C. on a complaint filed by the lawyer who represents President Trump's co-defendant, that he was extorted by the head of the counterintelligence litigation section, a man named Brat, B-R-A-T. Because if there's a finding that the attorney was extorted, the entire case collapses. Why wouldn't this judge in Florida, Judge Cannon, have said, even if she didn't want to put it off to after the election, which she should have, that I cannot go forward with the case in front of me until that is resolved? But she didn't. And you know where Mr. Brat was this week? He was in her courtroom in Florida, unsuccessfully arguing about classified documents and how they should be treated. He was in her courtroom while he's under investigation for extorting the lawyer who represents the co-defendant to Trump. And the extortion that's claimed here, the accusal, is that he told the co-defendant's lawyer that basically if your client will testify on behalf of the state against Trump, you probably have a better shot at getting that judgeship that you want. Something to that effect. And so Judge Cannon is fine with that man being in her courtroom. And she's fine with making the decision she made without that issue being resolved. She doesn't need a motion from the defense. She sees, she knows who he is. It's her courtroom. She has to protect the integrity of her own courtroom, and she's done a hell of a bad job of it. We'll see how it goes, but I'm very, very concerned, folks, that this judge is susceptible to pressure by the media, which is why the media keeps ramping it up. This decision is going to have an impact on the election. What she should have done, like the brilliant judge in Louisiana, Doughty, has written a 100, 150, 200-page decision explaining that she cannot allow the government, under the tutelage of the candidate who's running against the defendant, to determine the date of the trial and the course of the trial because of their filing of their charges during the course of the election. That she cannot allow the mere filing of the charges to determine that she must hold a trial during the course of the election. And that would drag the judiciary into the process. That's all she had to say. And she could have written it up beautifully. But she would have come under withering attack. And so she cuts the baby in half. And when you cut the baby in half, the baby dies. Solomon knew that. Judge Cannon does not. That was a critically important decision that she made the other day. People aren't commenting on it enough. And it was a disaster. An absolute disaster.